The extent of the flooding is remarkable. You can hardly imagine the breadth of the flooding, the magnitude of the flooding is something we never expected and never planned for. As I flew up the river today, you could see why agriculture is #1 industry in Arkansas. The extent of agricultural lands all along the riverway coming up, and of course there's flooding damage to it, but the greatest extent of damage will be in the agricultural community. So we flew in helicopters from Little Rock all the way up to Fort Smith along the Arkansas River and saw the massive extent of the flooding. And tragically, we've had hundreds of Arkansans displaced from their homes and thousands of farm acres flooded. Many roads closed. It looks like Highway 7 just outside Dardanelle and Russellville is going to close today, and roads closed in Ozark and Fort Smith as well. Millions of dollars in commerce lost in river navigation. But the thing that most inspiring to me is not what I saw, but what I've heard from local officials and communities coming together to overcome this disaster. I'm confident that the government response, not only here in Arkansas, but in Washington, is going to match the spirit of Arkansas that I've seen over this last week.
I've seen a lot of devastation, and but still to be determined is the unknown. What is the total impact? What is the total cost going to be of both the interruption in the business cycle to the interruption of the farmer trying to get his crops in? When you look at it in totality, we've had a major impact that will not be able to be calculated accurately for quite a while now.
The amount of water is just overwhelming. Lots of homes damaged, lots of industry damaged, and lots of farmland damaged.
And I know there's a lot of farmers that haven't even been able to get their crops in the ground this year. You know, it's wet whether you're inside the levee or outside the levee. So I think Arkansas agriculture is going to take it pretty hard on the wet spring that we've had, and obviously the flooding, which makes it impossible to farm that flooded ground.
Well, I'm #2 on the Ag Committee in the Senate, so I do understand very, very well, and I have great concerns. You know, we've got all of these issues going on. It's a perfect storm. We've got very low commodity prices across the board. We've got, you know, our trade issues. That's certainly making a difference. And then we've got the rain, and so we've got the flooding on the river. That's a huge issue. But also we've got rain all over, so it's difficult. Our farmers have not been able to get in and plant their crops. And so the window is closing, and in some cases it's closed. So what we're trying to do is work with Secretary Perdue. We want to make sure that the payments that have been agreed to, we've worked hard on those payments, get those agreed to, and then also get those pushed out in a timely fashion.
Yeah, I mean, it affects all parts of our lives. That you know, life is 10% of what happens to you and 90% of how you deal with it. And I think we'll show the rest of the world how Arkansans deal with adversity when we face it. And we'll recover from this. It'll take some time. We all need to join together, from the federal government to the state government to local communities, to help get through this.
The farmer is an indispensable link to the Arkansas economy, but I'm preaching to the choir. We all know that. Sometimes that old farmer out there gets hardship by something, in this case, totally beyond his control. We owe our farmer a lot of things, but to me, from a government perspective, we owe them a couple of really basic things, and that's one, risk protection, you know, against things that they don't control, and access to markets. And if you think about that, both of those have impacted our farmers in a remarkable way.
Well, Fort Smith Van Buren has felt the brunt of it at this point, but it's going to sequentially crest as the water goes down the river, going down to Ozark and Dardanelle and on down to Toadsuck and eventually down to Little Rock and then to Pendleton. So it's going to be something we have to watch for a number of weeks. And hopefully we're not going to have continued rain problems that's going to continue to fill it up and to raise that level. I think we're fairly well prepared right now, and hopefully we've seen the worst of it, but we have to watch this every day.